What is going on today, guys? My name's Alex and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about if my Ram 1500 has the ability to tow a mid-sized fifth wheel like the one just behind me here. Will my truck be able to tow this? That is the question we are going to be talking about today, so stick around. So this is a 27-foot mid-sized fifth wheel, and a quick Google search will show you that this thing has a 7,100 pound dry weight. And another quick Google search will tell you that the max towing capacity of this truck is 10,600 pounds with a max payload of about 1,800 pounds. So what are we even talking about? That trailer's 3,000 pounds under this max towing capacity. We should be able to tow that thing just fine. Well, it turns out it's not that simple. So let's focus on some numbers on this specific truck before we go any further. So, like I said, the max towing capacity of this truck is 10,600 pounds. Wrong. For this specific truck, the way it sits, the actual max towing capacity is only 8,000 pounds. And the max payload is only 1,500 pounds. Because it all depends how your specific truck is configured. For the 4th gen Ram 1500, here's the configuration truck you have to have those max numbers actually even available to you. So you need to have the standard cab, 8-foot long bed in there, has to be a 2x4, can't be a 4x4 truck, has to have the Hemi in it, and it has to have the 392 gears in the back. What I found really interesting is just the gearing ratio can have a huge impact on your maximum towing capacity. Now, that same configuration, what we had, the standard cab, 8-foot long box, 2x4 truck, if you didn't have the 392 gears and you had the 321 gear set up back here, your towing capacity is only 7,000 pounds, which is, I think it's more than 3,500 pounds lost in towing capacity just from having different gears in the back. So really make sure you know what gears you have in the back, because that is going to strongly impact your maximum towing capacity. And if you guys are curious where I'm getting all these numbers from, it's just the official Ram towing chart here, and it's a PDF, and you have all the different kinds of configurations of the 1500. So back to my truck specifically, as it sits, my truck is a quad cab 4x4. It's got the 6.4 bed in there. I have the Hemi engine, I have the 8-speed transmission, and I have 321 gears, which I was kind of upset about. Anyways, so if my truck as it sits right now has a maximum towing capacity of 8,000 pounds, we are still technically within range to tow that fifth wheel that sits just behind me, or at least you would think. Once again, it's a little more complicated than just maximum towing capacity, and in fact, your maximum towing capacity should kind of be the last number you check before you start towing something, in my opinion. Because what tends to happen with these 1500 trucks is it's the payload that tends to hang up these trucks from towing certain things. The curb weight of this truck is 5,300 pounds. And the GVW, or gross vehicle weight rating, is 6,900 pounds. So the gross vehicle weight rating is the maximum amount this truck can weigh. And that includes fuel, passengers, cargo, whatever, spare tire. That is all included in there. And depending on how your manufacturer measures the curb weight, the dry vehicle weight, a lot of those things aren't actually included. So that will, once again, lower the payload of the vehicle, because the payload of a truck is the GVW minus the dry weight of the vehicle. And those numbers tend to be much more important when you are towing specifically a trailer that is close to the maximum weight rating of the vehicle. Some other numbers that you may want to consider is the gross axle weight rating. On this truck, the Ram 1500s, I know for a fact the rear axle is always 3,900 pounds. The front axle, if it's a 4x4, is also always 3,900 pounds. If you have a 2x4, The front axle is 200 pounds less. It is 3,700 pounds. So those numbers can also come into play at times, but usually what's going to happen is you're going to go over your payload or your gross vehicle weight rating before you even need to think about your axle weight rating. There's always going to be a sticker, usually either on your door or right close to where your door sill is. This sticker has my GVW as well as my axle ratings right here. So if you just want to take a quick look, those ratings will always be either on the door or right near the door. So let's finally talk about why that mid-size fifth wheel is in fact going to overload this truck despite being well within its max towing capacity. The rule of thumb is that the tongue weight for a fifth wheel is going to be right around 20% of its overall weight. And like we talked about, the dry weight of that fifth wheel is 7,100 pounds. Now, that's the dry weight of what the manufacturer specifies empty. Now, if you put water in there, maybe the manufacturer doesn't include the batteries, propane tanks, plus all your gear in there, it's safe to say we'll add an extra 1,000 pounds. So we're looking at right around 8,000 pounds, let's say, for that fifth wheel. Now, if we do some quick math, 20% of 8,000 pounds is 1,600 pounds. So right away, we are well over our max payload for this truck as well as our GVW. You might think, well, we're only over 100 pounds, we should be okay. Well, like I mentioned before, we have to take into consideration passenger weight, the gear in here, your fuel. That all affects your gross vehicle weight rating as well as your payload. So let's say me plus my girlfriend plus some fuel plus whatever gear we have here, let's say that's 400 pounds. So our payload rating goes very quickly from 1,500 pounds to 1,100 pounds. And at that point, we are pretty significantly over our payload rating with 1,600 pounds of additional weight on the bed. And that is why 1,500s tend to run into issues, is because of the payload ratings, not necessarily the max tow rating. Now, with saying all of that, do they make fifth wheels that 1,500s can tow? Absolutely. They make super light fifth wheels specifically designed for 1,500 trucks. And it's not that your half ton can't tow 8,000 pounds, it just can't tow it in this configuration. Because once again, with a fifth wheel, the problem is that about 20% of the total weight is going to be coming down on your truck. Now, if this was just a normal, ball hitch trailer hookup, we would only have roughly 10%, or we would like to have 10%. And with only 10% of the total weight of this trailer on your truck, it would make it much more likely that you are going to be well within your weight ratings. Could this truck actually tow this fifth wheel? Yes, it probably could. And would there be any damage or anything hurt? Probably not. But there's 3 issues that you might run into. First, depending on what state or province you're in, you could get ticketed for being overweight. That's a real consideration. Every now and again, RVs, trailers are pulled into scales and could be potentially ticketed for being overweight. Number 2 is specifically with this truck, the Ram 1500. In the rear here, let's see if we can get a good look. So in the rear, hopefully you guys can see that, those are coil springs. Now this is kind of a Ram only thing. The Fords and Chevy still have just leaf spring setups. And obviously the coil spring is good for comfort. It's not really good for towing. So if you were to overload this rear suspension, what happens is when this thing hits a bump, this axle tends to move side to side more than what would happen with a leaf spring setup. If you guys know anything about towing trailers, the last thing you want is your rear axle to be slightly moving side to side when you hit bumps, especially when it's overloaded. So there is a little bit of a safety concern with this truck, and don't kid yourself. If you have leaf springs, there's also going to be somewhat of a safety concern if you're overloading an axle. And not to mention, there are bearings in here that hold your axles in place. And these are semi-floating, not full floating. So you will be putting more pressure on not only the axle itself, but also the internal hardware in there. You're going to put more stress on your truck than what it's designed for. Lastly, what I think is most important to consider if you are going to still be towing something that is technically overweight, if you were to get in an accident and if you were to hurt somebody and hurt someone seriously, and your insurance found out that you were in fact overloaded, there is a very strong possibility in that situation that your insurance company would no longer cover you. So if you did hurt somebody, you could be liable for thousands, maybe even millions of dollars just because you were simply overloaded. That would be worst case scenario, but it is also a real case scenario. So keep that in mind if you guys do still plan on towing with a slightly overloaded truck. All right, guys, hopefully that gives you a little insight into why the max towing capability of a vehicle or truck isn't necessarily the most important number. When it comes to towing trailers, make sure that you know all of the figures for your truck and that you can tow it safely, especially when you own a 1500, because like I said in the video, these trucks tend to get held up pretty significantly when it comes to the payload capability, not necessarily the towing capability. But that's gonna wrap up the video for today, guys. As always, I hope you liked it, and if you like stuff like this, maybe think about sticking around, because like I've said before, at the end of the month we do have some cool stuff planned for this truck, which I think will make some really cool content. And it may or may not involve towing. You'll have to wait and see. Anyways, if that sounds interesting, we'd love to have you on board. Maybe even think about subscribing. But that's it for me. We will see you on the next freaking video, guys.